Excellent. Hi, everyone. Thanks so kindly for joining us. Welcome to Green Apple Books on the Park. My name is Car Johnson. I'm the event coordinator for Green Apple, and tonight I'm very happy to welcome you to the launch date, publication date for the paperback edition of Mayor of the Tenderloin, and we are joined tonight by its author, Alison Owings. Let's get a hand for Alison. Hello, Alison. We are joined too by none other than the book's subject, Del Seymour. Let's give a hand for Del. They are going to be joined tonight by our interlocutor, the Tenderloin Museum's Alex Spoto. Let's give a hand for Alex as well. I'm going to ask you to clap a lot this evening, so I hope you're ready for it. Thank you for joining us here in person and also online. Hello, online audience. My no camera if you can't see. We are broadcasting from San Francisco, California. We open each of our events with a land acknowledgement, and so I would like to let you know that we are operating on unceded Shoshone land. We think that acknowledgement requires action, and so we encourage you to donate either your time or monetary means to an Indigenous organization each time you hear a land acknowledgement. There are a lot of ways to participate in this project of rematriation, but we have details about the Shoshone Land Trust at the back desk if you are interested in participating that way. Very brief business before I let these folks take over. Now's a good time to silence your cell phones if you have not already. I would ask that you not take a call in the middle of the event, at least not while you're sitting here with the rest of your audience members. Please do check out our full event calendar online at greenapplebooks.com. We have a really great season ahead of us, including the event you are currently attending. Please do, if you are able, if you have not already, buy books. Please do buy books from us, your hosts this evening. If you've been here before, you've certainly heard me say that when you buy books from us, not only do you support us as an independent bookstore, you support the writers who put so much work into making these books, and then you get to have a book, which might be the best part. So if you are able, we always appreciate it. Thank you so kindly. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce all three of the stellar people who are joining us this evening. First, Alex Spoto serves as the Tenderloin Museum's program director, ideating, planning, and executing public programming, and previously served as at TLM as a volunteer and as communications coordinator. Alex holds a BA in American Civilization from Brown University, among many other accolades, but let's give a hand once more for Alex Spoto. Our author, Alison Owings, is the author of 3 previous oral history-based books. Frauen, I hope I said that correctly. Excellent. German Women Recall the Third Reich, which is a New York Times Notable Book of the Year and New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice. Indian Voices, Listening to Native Americans, as well as Hey Waitress, the USA from the Other Side of the Tray. A former television news writer at CBS News, she lives here in the Bay Area with her husband. She is the author of Mayor of the Tenderloin. Let's give one more hand for Alison Owings. And last but most certainly not least, Del Seymour is an African-American Vietnam veteran who was chronically homeless and incarcerated for 18 years. He founded Code Tenderloin in 2015. Happy anniversary. And of course, and and co-chair of San Francisco's local homeless coordinating board, local homeless coordinating board. He formed Code Tenderloin to create a bridge between the most underserved members of his city and the tech industry. Let's give one more hand for Del Seymour.
Thank you, Car. Thank you, Alison. Thank you, Del.
Yes.
So happy to be here and excited to celebrate the paperback release of this book, which, from where I sit in the Tenderloin Museum, is a pretty significant entry into the syllabus of Tenderloinalia, so to speak. Del is a person who's been in our world and in our milieu as long as the museum has, and certainly as long as I've been around. I've worked there on and off since 2017, and we share a lot of passion for the neighborhood, yes, but also the story and the history of the neighborhood. I think to begin, Alison suggested a passage from one of the chapters that I think will get you all acquainted with Dell if you are not already. And do you all want to read a little bit from The Reluctant Draftee?
Hi, thank you. Actually, before I read,
Okay, yeah.
before I read, I wanted to give a few little shout outs, and one is to Carr. Thank you for organizing this really wonderful bookstore. And I want to thank Ellen Yang, my new publicist over there, who might, if any of you are writers, and I know many of you, in fact, most of you probably are, need a publicist. Ellen is there. I want to thank my husband, Jonathan Perdue, who doesn't want to be thanked for making virtually all my books possible. And I want to thank Dell for his patience, his impatient patience in all the years that I interviewed him for this book. And I had told Alex before, if it's okay, I also wanted to add one 30-second anecdote that I have been saving for this moment, for the debut of the paperback. And that is that I was on the phone a while ago with a sort of a distant relative I don't speak with very much. And she had bought the book. And she was halfway through it, and she said, "Oh my God, what he's been through, what this guy Dell has been through." I said, I mean, because I knew, because I've been interviewing him about it for these years. And then she lowers her voice and says, "Well, tell me, Alison, is he still alive?" And I said, "Well, he was about an hour ago." And I heard this crash, and she was laughing so hard she had dropped the phone. Anyway, that's my little anecdote. I just knew you would love it, though.
I love it.
Yeah, right, okay. Okay, so this is from The Reluctant Draftee, and I'm going to read just my first two sentences, and then Dell will pick up. Dell received his draft notice in 1967. What could that mean but Vietnam? In response, he tried to fail his physical.
Everything I checked, yes. Do you have diabetes? Yes. Are you an amputee? Yes. Are you pregnant? Hell yes. I checked every box. I told him I'm crazy. I piss on myself. I got leprosy. I got polio. The doctor came up and says, "Man, you're in pretty bad shape, huh?"
End of discussion.
Actually, what he said was, "How'd you get here? You must have came in an ambulance." His idea was nobody could be that messed up and came on the bus. And as soon as I told him all that, he said, "Get your ass over to line 17. And that was it. Because everyone in my line had the same ailment. So we didn't want to go. I mean, it was a, you're 18 years old, you just got freedom from school. You kind of got freedom from your parents, so now you're kind of an adult. Just got a new car, a new little girlfriend. I wasn't ready to go nowhere. I didn't even know where Vietnam was. Who wanted to leave the hood? At the time, I had a good job, a good girl, a good car, and freedom from my relatives. The wrong time to go. I did not want to go there.
In reading this passage, Alison suggested it in advance of the event, and yes, it warrants a laugh. It's funny. Dell is often funny, and I think that paragraph suggests this guy is trying to kind of stay free, and free meaning away from any responsibilities of some. I don't know, something bigger or more adult. I mean, in this case, going to war, which maybe, being yoked to that has its own kind of set of responsibilities that come with it. But I do think, you are somebody that is has an incredible amount of responsibility in the neighborhood on many levels, and also is someone who's human enough to kind of recognize that you might not want to take up that yoke necessarily, and will come up with a really tall tale to try to avoid it. So yeah, I think a nice way to kind of meet Del here. I want to come back to a few of the themes in this this paragraph, but maybe just to begin, for those who are less familiar with the book, Alison, how did this book come to be, and how did it end up centered on Mr. Seymour here?
It came to be essentially because I wanted to write something about homelessness. I'm an oral historian and journalist, really, and I had just finished writing a book about Native Americans, interviewing people all over the country about what it was like to be a Native American in this country today. And I was thinking about what to write next. And I saw homelessness around me, and I thought I could write a book about homelessness and interview people, again, all over the country about what it was like to be homeless. And the very idea just sort of throttled me. I kept thinking, this is going to be so depressing, because every story is going to have an unhappy ending, basically, if everyone's still homeless. As opposed to a Native American subject, because what I had not realized until I started the book was that Native people in general are hysterically funny. And so that kept me going. But I thought, and not to say that some homeless people are not funny too, but I was really daunted by that idea. And I was thinking, and I travel on a budget usually, and I was thinking, how many couches will I be staying in, and how will I get there? And also the question of follow-up, the question of how to do follow-up interviews with people I'd interviewed, because people's lives changed. And I just got very discouraged at the very idea, and I didn't know how I was going to do this book. And I also thought, will my agent want to represent it? And actually, I had a very fancy agent at the time in New York, and she said, "Oh, Alison, no one cares about homelessness." And I thought, oh, that's going to be really great. She's going to be a great seller for this book. And so I ended things with that agent, and it was not easy finding a new agent. And I also thought, who's going to want to publish a book of short stories, and sad stories, who's going to want to read it? So I was in this conundrum when Jonathan and I went to the Tenderloin for a walking tour. And the guide was Del Seymour. And at the risk of saying this maybe for the 100th time, because you've heard it before, I had no idea Del had been homeless. He was giving a tour about his Tenderloin, and he told us that he had been addicted. But I didn't know much more than that. And then he pointed to this area, Turk-and-Taylor, I think, and said, I could have gotten a PhD in sidewalks. And that told me that it was pathos and humor at the same time. And I thought, oh, I wonder if I could write a book based on just one person, if he would agree to do it. So that's how it started.
And I do think, did you go to the Tenderloin for a walking tour, or did you go to the Tenderloin to see
No, for a walking
a
tour.
play? Was there not a play involved?
The play was involved, yes. It was a walking tour that preceded a play called Heroes.
About drug use in the neighborhood.
About drug use in the neighborhood, yes.
We'll come back to that in a bit. Del,
Okay.
why did you say yes to participating in this?
Well, for a couple of reasons. I tried to steer this book towards it being a book about the Tenderloin. That was my effort, and it's still my effort, for you all to understand my crazy, weird-ass neighborhood. Because no one understands it. I've been there 38 years. I still don't understand it. So I know you all don't understand it. So that was my hope. I remember once when I was in recovery, and I was pretty depressed about my life and where I was, and the ability for me to turn all that garbage around into something substantial. And I was really feeling bad. I didn't feel like I could do it. I felt like I was overwhelmed with my background. I'll never get back. I'll never get back. And I went to an NA meeting in Oakland, and this guy, they invite speakers to come up. And we're all users. The only people in that room can be users. And he got up and started telling me about his life. And I sat there and said, man, I ain't nowhere near as messed up as that guy. So it gave me hope. I could turn around. I ain't nowhere near him. So I was hoping this book, if we wrote it right and portrayed it right, someone may pick it up who's in that same mode I was in that night and say, oh, I ain't nowhere near as messed up as Dale. I can get my life back together. So those are my only two reasons for agreeing to do this. I'm from Chicago. I don't know if you all know anyone from Chicago. We got this privacy issue. Stay out of my business, man. Stay out of my business. You don't tell nobody nothing about your life. That's that's that mafia thing that we inherited when the mafia kind of took over one part of Chicago. And we emulated. I lived on one side of the street, like over there was the Italian neighborhood, the mafia neighborhood. And this side was a black neighborhood. And we didn't like each other, but we envied them, the way they ran their street businesses. So I still got that in me. And so it was hard for me to accept telling anyone anything about my life. Yeah.
I think you've used the word tool. Like this book could be a tool to
Yeah.
solve issues that you and the organizations that you founded are working to fix or improve.
Well, improving the Tenderloin takes tools. Improving one addicted or mental ill person takes tools. We are like a broken down car, a 50-year-old broken down car. And I got a 50-year-old broken down car, so I know what it means. I can't fix my car with a screwdriver. I need that whole Craftsman toolkit, with 300 sockets and 15 drills and all that. And that's what it takes, is a bunch of tools. You can't people say, how did you get clean? How did you do this? So we'll sit down because it's going to take me a couple hours. Because there's a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of things. And that's what the idea of this book, when I talk about this book and when I quote from the book, is to get people to realize it ain't simple. It's simple to get addicted, but it damn sure ain't simple to get unaddicted. So people say, why can't you just stop? That's the most ridiculous thing you could say to somebody. It's why can't you just stop? Because then you're denying what the definition of addiction is. Addiction is a disease. It's like me coming to you and you saying you got cancer. Well, why don't you just stop that cancer? You can't just stop that. You got a disease. It needs medical intervention. Same with an addict. You need medical intervention. Counseling. So you just can't stop. I had a group of people this morning, for a bunch of supervisors from UPS all over the United States came to talk to me. And it was interesting when I tried to tell them that how hard it is to stop, and you can't just stop. And with me, it's 2 days in my life that was important in my life. The day that I stopped using drugs, and I think you all would agree, that's a very important day in the addict's life. The day that you have physically stopped using drugs. That wasn't nothing. My day was the day I didn't want to use drugs. Came much later. For me, it's 3 years. I just talked to a guy the other day. He said it was 20 years. He endured 20 years of it. I did 3 years of fighting, man, fighting. I'm talking about all day and all night. All I wanted to do was get high. All I wanted to do was get high. In the middle of the night, I wake up shaking like I had the DTs. All I wanted to do, but I couldn't because I made a commitment. I was not going to get high. And then I woke up one morning 3 years later. I didn't feel nothing. Didn't feel all those, didn't feel nothing. And like you can't put it on the calendar. Okay, 3 years I'll be okay. You'll never know. Just like the day that I stopped, before the 3 years, the day that I actually physically stopped, I was on the way to get me some dope. And somebody said, no, we're not doing that today. In fact, we're not doing that no more. I don't know who it was talking to me. My ancestors, God, Allah, Ali, with all the God's names, or me, my chemical body, my brain, my sensibility. But something said, no, we're not going to get no drugs. And I never expected it. I was on the way to get me some dope. Hustled all morning to get the money together. I was already on the way to the dope man. And that was the last time in my life I actually put a pipe in my mouth. So and I tell people all the time, don't plan on it, because it's going to come one day. You might be in the middle of a hit. I don't want to do this no more. And people have told me that.
For the record, I'm here as an individual. Opinions are my own, but I work for the Tenderloin Museum, and it's a museum that, with a mission to promote the history and character of the neighborhood, and I think a kind of implied mission to complicate people's often superficial understandings of what the neighborhood is all about. And I think the disease of addiction can be so domineering and loom so large. It's easy to forget that a lot of people who are addicted, I mean, you said it just now, you hustled and got the money. You're a really hard worker.
Yeah.
And you had 1 million jobs. In this book, I knew you had like 5 or 6 jobs, but in this book, I read it and it's like, I think you could like fix anything in my house and tear it down and rebuild it, and then also maybe like fly me
you
in a
already
helicopter.
noticed that since I've been sitting here, I'm looking up at the ceiling. One of my jobs is I'm an electrician. And I always go, like I used to go to my friends' houses and be, man, let me move that plug for you. Man, you came over here for dinner. Sit down. So the electrician plumbers, we go, well, that shit ain't right. Why did they do that? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the organization that you're probably most regularly associated with is Code Tenderloin, which is essentially an economic workforce development organization. It teaches people workforce skills, whatever they may be. And the name comes not from teaching people to code and tacking into the San Francisco tech thing, although sometimes that happens, but refers to your career as a medic and the hospital codes, and that like this neighborhood needs some some attention, medical attention.
It's coding out. It's
coding out.
Code green, code red.
So you set out to write a book about homelessness. Dell steered it to the place of the Tenderloin, which, I like to foreground that it is a hardcore working class neighborhood, whether it's legitimate work or informal or illegitimate work. People are working hard there in a lot of different ways.
Well, the reason the book exists is really because, and focuses on the Tenderloin, is that's simply where Dell was. I mean, more or less living. I'm not sure. No, you were in Fairfield for a while, and San Leandro. So, but Tenderloin was a central place where I could find Dell. So that's where we mostly did the interviews. In fact, at the old original Joe's, which then became the Piano Fight nightclub, that's where we did a lot of the interviews, and a few other places too, but mostly there. And I was aware that it was a disparate neighborhood and had many things going for it, many things not going for it. And actually, when I started interviewing Dell, which was a long time ago, it was in December 2015, was our first interview. He had just started Code Tenderloin. It was only about a few months old, and I thought, oh, that sounds nice. I mean, it did. It sounded nice, and it's become a huge force in the city now. But I was more interested in this individual and what he had been through, and what other people could learn from him. Not only Dell's focus, which was helping other people who were addicted get over their addiction and face it and not be so hard on themselves when they backslid, which people often did. But I was also very much, as a writer, trying to write a book that would influence people who were not addicted and who were white folks in the suburbs, people who worked in government, or who were from any nationality, any background, any economic strata, who would be interested in how they might do something to help with homelessness. And it could be something as small as just paying their taxes to help with a homeless shelter, or, as I learned from Dell, just saying hello to somebody on the street somebody who's sitting there, and it took me a while actually to be able to do that, because I thought, I don't want to disturb this person who's clearly not in great shape. But thanks to Del, I would start, saying hello to people. And the book really was meant for both communities, for people who are housed and unhoused. That was anyway my purpose.
What was it? I guess what was it like to kind of telescope from writing these books, or at least your book length projects, about groups of people and kind of aiming for that aggregate, try to extract some meaning from getting multiple points of view to, in some ways this is like a very straight biography in a lot. I mean, it reads like a biography of Del, and Del has a very colorful life, so it's very dramatic and entertaining and often funny. But yeah, it's like
often, yes, more than often sometimes.
It seems different than like an oral history project.
Well, in a way, an oral historian is someone I'm not really. I mean, I'm kind of called an oral historian, but an oral historian is really hands off. They don't say, wait a minute, didn't you just say this? I mean, they certainly wouldn't interrupt, and they certainly wouldn't challenge anything. I mean, they're almost like a non-entity. They just say, please tell me everything about your life, end of story, and that's that. And I don't do that. I get a little more involved, or a lot more involved.
Yeah, a lot more.
And initially, well, there are two answers. One is initially I wrote the book as a straight biography in a way, in that Del was born in Chicago and then what happened in Vietnam and so on and so forth.
The chapters are kind of
initially it was pretty chronological, because Del told me so much it was difficult to keep it straight, except as a chronology. So when I got an agent who did want to take on the book, she said, I think you've got to change this around, because she said, you're asking readers to read 200 pages before this guy's life takes off in a good way. And 200 pages is a lot for a reader who doesn't know who this person is. I don't know if you knew that, but anyway. So she rearranged it. And she started with this really wonderful chapter about one of the first graduations of the Code Tenderloin people. So, and then she sold the book, finally, to Beacon Press. The editor at Beacon Press said, oh, I really love it, but the organization is all wrong. And you shouldn't start with this really wonderful scene of the graduation of Code Tenderloin, because the reader doesn't yet know what everyone's been through and doesn't know what Del has done to deserve this. The reader doesn't deserve this chapter yet. So she rearranged the book with my approval. I mean, I had to sign off on it, to start with Del going down, getting addicted. And so that's why it jumps all over the place in a way. And it's very careful jumping. I mean, it's meant to be the way it is. As to your question about focusing on one person, at one point I thought Del really encapsulates an awful lot of what happens to people who get addicted and get homeless. So in a way, he could be almost a so-called typical person, in a way. But I also thought that I wanted a little more to round out the characters in the book. So I talked to about, I think, I haven't really counted, but there are like 15 or 20 other people in the book who have slightly different points of view. Some of them, some Del introduced me to, his former crack dealer, two of his adult daughters, the Tenderloin police captain, and I talked to a psychiatrist who deals mostly with homeless people, and other people who'd been addicted, and a couple people in Code Tenderloin. So I rounded it out as much as I could, while also focusing mostly on Del. Does that answer?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean it's it's got a few. It's operating on a few different wavelengths, and I appreciated as someone who enjoys reading biographies, the pleasure of the straight biography, but also interpolated with this this picture of the neighborhood, because kind of just by hanging around Dell, and Dell in an era of his life where he was kind of entrenching himself in the wonkiness of the Tenderloin. You had Code Tenderloin. You're sitting on the homeless coordinating commission. You're getting involved with Glide. You're sitting on the board. You're not just a guy hanging out on the street or being involved in that way, but you're someone who's behind and in front of the scenes in a lot of ways. In the neighborhood, it's been a crazy decade. I mean,
Yeah.
And I'd like to think too that the museum just turned 10, and along with that, I'd like to think that the presence of the museum and the presence of Tenderloin walking tours has helped complicate and deepen people's interests in the Tenderloin and what it's all about. And it's also part of a pretty long lineage of like non-mainstream kind of countercultural chronicling of this place, going back really to I'm sure it extends farther back, but I'm thinking like the queer youth scenes like Vanguard in the 60s that were coming out of Glide, what would become Hospitality House or Tenderloin Times in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s. Central City Extra even has, those are more local newspaper types of chronicles, but it's just not the story that has endured. But then when you take a close look, there is this incredible kind of multitudinous thing happening in this neighborhood. And and I think you're kind of, you do stick with Dell as like a really hard worker and really resilient worker throughout this whole story. And I know you have your book about the waitresses, you're interested in this kind of labor history in a way. Dell, you're a medic, you're in Vietnam, you're working as a firefighter in LA, you're an electrician, you're a plumber, you're hustling, you're starting an organization. But a job of yours I want to talk about is Tenderloin walking tours, because I feel like that's where you kind of get into that's where your passion for the history of the neighborhood comes into play. Do you think maybe we could read from, I think it's page 49, First Steps.
Okay.
And I think
you wanted me to read.
Yeah, Allison, you can just read maybe like the first page and a paragraph.
Okay.
Yeah.
At a major juncture in his life, following 2 violent episodes, Dell vowed to give up pimping and crack, both smoking it and dealing it. He also inadvertently gave up part-time work as a San Francisco cab driver. I owed like $5,000 in red light camera tickets, so I couldn't get my license, and no insurance company, he said, would have covered him. He sought new and legitimate work, just to do something. A memory from a cab driving sideline came to him. The sideline was to offer passengers tours. I would pick them up at the airport, take them downtown, and give them my number. Here, you want to go on a tour of the city? Call me. They would. Whether they wanted to visit Haight-Ashbury or the wine country, Dell was game. A feature both he and his customers liked was getting out of the cab. I will get boat to the destination and we will walk around. In those tours, Dell never took tourists to the Tenderloin, the part of San Francisco he knew best. For one thing, many tourist hotels were close by, especially the Union Square shopping area. Visitors wanted to go farther away. He did not mention another consideration. What tourists wanted to visit the infamously scary, dirty, unappealing Tenderloin? Nonetheless, Dell needed work that was legal, income generating, and did not require a car. By process of elimination and a flash of imagination, he thought, how about setting up walking tours of the Tenderloin? Is that?
Let's read the next paragraph.
Okay.
Also, the next 2 paragraphs,
Okay.
please.
Before anyone could dissuade him, he got to work on several fronts to learn more about the area, including its history as a theater district. Among other distinctions, he headed to the main San Francisco Public Library, which essentially borders the Tenderloin, and went to the archives. It's a special room above the library, usually only 2 or 3 people in there. You got to put on gloves, and they bring you one document at a time. These are originals. Dell consulted the online catalog, then read the selected material. I was there every day for hours. I was one of the people they didn't even ask for my ID. I learned how, block by block, the Tenderloin had evolved from a sandy gold rush era residential site to a commercial area, then a place variously of vice, civic cleanup, corruption, acceptance, and all along varied entertainments. It took him months, he figured.
So you did your research.
Yeah, I did, I didn't want to be wrong. Tenderloin has such history. I mean, amazing history. This entire city has history, but the Tenderloin had history. The biggest historical fact of the Tenderloin is that it was won during World War II. It was used for rest and recreation by our sailors. You know, the second part of World War II, we fought the war right out here. And at times there would be 30 to 40 battleships parked out there in that bay. At the time, the bay came all the way to Montgomery. These young men, and I would like to say young men and women, but at that time there were no women on those ships. So these young men would be out to sea, out there, dodging bullets and firing bullets for 6, 7, 8 months at a time. They would build up 6, 7, 8 months' pay and hadn't seen someone from the other gender in 6, 7, 8 months. So they would land in the Tenderloin. The Tenderloin was designed for them. Everything they couldn't get on that ship, they could get in the Tenderloin. And it didn't matter if you blew every dollar you had, because you get back on the boat, you didn't need any money on the boat. And you would go out for another 6 to 8 months and build up a pocket full of money. So this was very endearing to our military. And we had bars and X-rated places and brothels all over the Tenderloin. The biggest brothel was where the Hilton Hotel is now. That was mainly for servicemen. So the Tenderloin has a lot of history. So I was able to do a lot of research so that, you know, as I tell my tour guides now, I have a whole team of tour guides, that if you don't know what's on this aisle, don't show that aisle to tourists. Do research on this aisle, and that's what you show them. Because you should be able to say, well, what's that book up there? Oh, that's First Cat in Space. And that's what I don't show you anything I can't tell you everything about. What's that little hole in that wall up there? Oh, that's so and so and so. And that's important about leading tours.
What I love about, Dell comes to the museum often, brings tourists by to kind of point out a few things and talk about the museum a little bit, talk about Leroy Looper and the Cadillac Hotel. And you're a master storyteller and performer and public speaker. And you know, part of what's so cool about this book, there's this kind of like metatextual element where you're really like, you're writing this book about the master raconteur of the Tenderloin, and maybe he tells it a little different every time, or embellishes something here, plays something down, he reads the room. But what are some of the, when you're training up a tour guide, like what, as a performer, as like an artist of delivering the tour, what are some of the guiding lights for you?
You got to keep your guests entertained. This is entertainment. We're working on a new grant right now that we're gonna bring tourists in who've never been to Tenderloin, with the whole goal of them coming back. Because that's the whole point. We don't want to do a one-time thing for tourists. We want tourists and you folks out here in the avenues to come and come back. And that's by being entertaining, keeping the people. I mean, I went on a tour of the Palace Hotel a few years ago, and the tour guide, I fell asleep. Because he was just mundane. He was like reading out of a script. We don't do scripts. I don't believe in that. And to keep me from being bored, every tour is different. Every tour, and that's not, I ain't trying to make it more interesting to you. I'm trying to keep me from getting bored. The Tenderloin has about 16 to 17 square blocks. And I could do a tour on every block. I could do 3 hours per block. Easily, because I know almost every building in the Tenderloin, the history of it, the nature of it, the future of it. And I enjoy doing that. I enjoy being able to be somebody that can, you know, my tour guides look at me and says, you never taught us that. I said, well, you know, if you were around long enough, I would teach you the whole, because it took me about 3 years to get down with everything up in that history room. And when I got started, so.
Actually, one of the things I've been on several tours since that first one, and one of the things that I've noticed is that Dell very cleverly asks the tourists before they start, where are you from? What are you interested in? And that kind of gauges then his sense of what he might show them or what might not show them. And also, he has eyes in the back of his head that see what else is going on in the Tenderloin. And he might be going down this block and say, no, actually, let's go in this direction. Because things happen in the Tenderloin that he doesn't necessarily want other people to see.
Yeah, I had a New York Times reporter came out, and the police chief came out also. Chief Sir. I don't know if y'all remember him. Chief Sir was 2 chiefs back. And the New York Times, he was quizzing the police chief. And police would say, oh, the Tenderloin, safe part of the city. You know, we never have any problems down here. And he's going on and on, talking about, and then we hear, bam, 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 bam. And right across the street, right down Leavenworth and Eddy, 2 guys got shot at the bodega. And chief ran over, and then we walked over behind him, and the chief was there dealing with the people. And then goes, do you think I should ask him again about this? I said, no, leave him alone. Ain't even necessary. But, you know, I ask people where they're from because I'm feeling my audience. If you're from Cedar Rapids, I'll do a tour one way. If you're from LA, I'll do it a different way. And you know, I like to know what occupation you are. If you're a doctor, if you're all the doctors, I'm gonna probably talk medical care. If you're a psychiatrist, I'm gonna talk mental illness. If you're carpenters, we're gonna talk about the buildings. I try to get something that you can be familiar with, and that again is reading the audience and being you know, kind to the audience to try to give them what they want. And it's been fun. And I'll keep doing this until there's no more fun. And or I'll just think of something new to do.
Well, you're great at it, so you should keep doing it. I think I'm going to ask one more question before we open up to the audience here. And I wanted to have you talk a little bit about Tenderloin Blackness, which is a collaboration, an exhibit that was at the Tenderloin Museum and that we hope is going to be in the expanded bigger, better Tenderloin Museum.
Yeah,
but
we're going to get that.
That was kind of Dell as curator, as fashioner of the story and the history. What was Tenderloin Blackness?
Well, you know, the media circus is called the media, tends to portray the black folks in the Tenderloin and the minorities in the Tenderloin as either drug users or drug dealers. When you go to the Tenderloin, those people you see in the streets, they're not even from the Tenderloin. We're upstairs. We don't come outside. We can't come outside our own apartments. You don't see us. Come out at 6 in the morning and see all the black and brown people with their security guard uniforms on and their service uniform on for the restaurants and hospitality. We go to work every day just like you all do. But we got that idea that we are all drug dealers and drug users. So I came up with the idea to start a program, or really a nonprofit, called Tenderloin Blackness. I wish I would have worn my, well, let's see, got something right here.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. And what we're doing is trying to build up the dignity of it, not just black people. I mean, half my team on there are not black. And we go around the Tenderloin building up pride and dignity in the Tenderloin. So that's what we do. I just want to thank my friend here, Miss Miller. She wrote about my tour. She's a former Chronicle reporter. She wrote about my tour, what, 18 years ago? 17 years ago? And she did one of my first shout outs. Big article. You did a couple of them. In the so thank you. And the first book signing I've ever been to in my life was hers. How long ago was that?
Good question.
12 years ago?
Maybe. Sounds
Yeah,
about right.
over in the East Bay, yeah. And so thank you for coming today.
You wrote a great column.
Thank you. This is a great book.
Thank you.
Maybe the perfect
Segue.
segue into inviting all of you here in the room to ask a question, love a question, share a reflection, maybe. Anyone?
We'd love to join the tour.
Oh yeah, just go to the tell walking car. I'll give you my card. Or just call me and we'll book it.
I have a question for both of you, really, but Alison, knowing you for years and, having talked with you a lot about the other books, you first off wanted to write a book about homelessness. That was your focus. this is actually a very different book. You know, it really evolved in a very different direction. And it strikes me more about a person than about, and people, really, and then about homelessness as a problem. You know, and I think that was a really good way to do it, because it really opened up the question, you know, about the topic and made it much more personal, full, and really understandable in a way that I hadn't understood it before. But I wonder what you have learned, both of you, really about this whole issue of homelessness and how it fits with all this.
Well, I can only say that I've learned an enormous amount through Dell, including just skewering some of the cliches. For instance, I did not realize that so many homeless people also had full-time jobs. That's not very well known outside that community. I didn't know, in terms of addiction, how many times it might take to stop an addiction. How many back and forths and back and forths. There were just lots of the little tiny things about living on the street that I didn't know, that I learned from Dell, including how people sometimes would gather because they had certain commonalities, like they all had pit bulls or something like that, or they were all from a certain kind of weird sect, or whatever it was. There were certain communities within the community, and I learned an awful lot about that. I didn't want to interview people who were currently homeless simply because I didn't want to intrude that much, and so Dell was sort of my filter, I'd say, of someone who had been there but wasn't any longer, and wasn't high, so I could trust pretty much what he said. But I would say that I continued to learn, and I kept trying to write what I'd learned in the book as part of the continuum of Dell's story, rather than have it as a lecturer, oh, I'm this outside person, that this is what I've learned. I tried to sprinkle it in. I mean, writing is very hard, as you know, and I wanted my knowledge to be imparted in a way that would work for the reader, and not come across as heavy-handed. I think I went off a little on your topic, but maybe you can answer better.
So I think I kind of got what you're asking. I think there's no book up there on how to be homeless, and there's no book up there how to be unhomeless. There's no book up there how to be an addict, and there's no book up there how to be clean. Those books aren't written yet because nobody knows those answers. There's no template to this. You know, one thing I can say about homelessness, some people feel it's a benefit. My PG&E this month was $403. Tyrone has no PG&E, so I kind of envy him a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And that's sometimes when you get in a discussion with people that are unhoused about, why don't you get your life together and come back? Man, then I got to pay their landlord, I got to pay PG&E, I got to keep my music down, and it all makes sense. You know, that you wonder why people reject going back into the mainstream, having ensured that you got that $1,800 every month. Every month. You can't miss a month. In that tent, you ain't got no $1,800. So you don't have that pressure like we have, like all of us have. We got to make sure we got that mortgage next month. They don't. Not that that justifies them living like an animal, but you can kind of get the understanding. And when I look at my PG&E bill laying there on my desk when I get home tonight, I said, yeah, I get it. I get it. You know what I'm saying? So you got to understand all that. And that's what these books should be about, is understanding why people are out there. You know, the main thing is, and again, I had a discussion this morning, a speech where you got to be, I've kind of lost my thought here, where there's reasons for people to be out there. And when your city comes, like for example, if you were to be put out your apartment tonight because the landlord just got fed up with you, or the building caught on fire, unfortunately, and you had to get a new apartment, right? How many apartments would you look at? I'm asking you a question.
Oh, at least a dozen, if not more.
There you
yeah.
go. But you know what we do to Tyrone? It's the city of San Francisco. Tyrone, roll your shit up. You going to 5th and Bryant. Well, maybe I got beat up at 5th and Bryant at the shelter. Maybe I know how nasty it is. Maybe my ex is in there. Whatever. There's reasons why you're not giving Tyrone no choice, but you're taking 7 choices, 8 choices. The interviewer at the housing department will look at 7 apartments. Why can't Tyrone look at 7 places or 2 places or 3 places? One thing about that tent that you all may say, why is he living in that nasty ass tent? It's his. Or her, I keep saying his. It's his, it's hers. She decides what time she turns the light out. She decides what time she gets up in the morning. She decides who's gonna lay 3 inches from her. Because in that shelter on 5th and Bryant, you're 3 inches to someone you ain't never met in your life. And you're supposed to close your eyes and go to sleep within 3 inches of anybody that could do anything to you. And you better not go in that bathroom at night. You better not go in that bathroom. You'll have an experience all that we can't even describe. So no, yeah, I'm gonna stay in my tent. But you know what you do to me? You write down uncooperative. Refuse service. I didn't refuse no damn service. I refused that nasty ass place you was gonna put me in. To take off. I'm 60 years old, 70 years old. I don't want to go to sleep at 9 o'clock at night. I don't want to get up at 6 in the morning. I'm homeless. Where am I gonna go at 6 o'clock in the morning? Why are you waking me up at 6 o'clock in the morning? Why is that bathroom so nasty? Why are you talking to me like I'm in jail? And I can't say nothing back because you'll put me out. So I got to listen to you and put my head down like I'm a 6-year-old child. Who in the hell wants that? But you put me down as refused services. I didn't refuse service. I refused that bullshit that the city of San Francisco is trying to offer me and telling me, well, we went out today and 33 people turned down. They turned down that bullshit. Sorry.
You know, Del,
That's all right.
I'm
And
thinking.
that's in the book, by the way, that kind of thing. Yep.
I think in another interview, you maybe even a couple, you've mentioned this idea of the kind of liberation of being on the street, the freedom, and referring to it as like a hippie thing at one point. I'm thinking about this passage you read at the beginning, 1967. You're trying to get out of service. It's also the summer of love. It's like the influx of people coming to San Francisco. A lot of them were young, getting away from their parents. A lot of them, queer. Many of them ended up in the Tenderloin homeless, and it's what kind of birthed Hospitality House, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And, I think the place you landed in that last comment is a very different circumstance, but you've mentioned that like that kind of strain of this conversation doesn't really get talked about much, or maybe it gets misunderstood as like, oh, someone wants to be, like living wild and free or something, because I don't think that's fully it either. But where we're at now with like the housing supply, I think about the museums is in the Cadillac Hotel, which is an SRO that was run by this guy, Leroy Looper, who you talk about on all your tours. And was a guy that was, into black man in the 80s, who had been in the Fillmore, and was into preserving these residential hotels that were often not very nice places to live, very efficiency, but because they were housing, they were roofs for people that needed them over their heads. And historic preservation was often used as like a way to keep these buildings around so that they, there were individual units for people instead of congregate shelters. And I don't know, maybe now the stakes have changed a little bit. You don't seem particularly sentimental about
if you've been past, you've been in them, you and I have been in them. You've been past and been in our what we call SROs, single resident. They're pieces of shit. They need to go. Caterpillar's going out of business in Peoria, Illinois. They need to go to Illinois and pick up all those Caterpillars and bring them back and park them along Turk Street and just push the Tenderloin into the ocean. We need chrome and glass. I'm tired of The Tenderloin was rebuilt after the 1906 earthquake with existing material. They brought no material to rebuild the Tenderloin. So those 8-story buildings that fell became 4-story buildings, using all the material they could get out of the vacant lot to rebuild it. And the United States Army rebuilt. They didn't bring contractors in. They brought the Department of Engineers to rebuild the Tenderloin. So the next real quake, we ain't really had a real quake yet. But when we get a real quake, Tenderloin's gone. Because that's all that material's been an earthquake already. There's no reason in 2025 in a city like San Francisco, California, home where they just showed that Los Gatos was the richest city in the United States. Median income is like $900 million or $1 trillion, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That we have to have a building where there's 60 people on the floor and there's one bathroom and it don't work. You got to go 3 levels down maybe to find a working bathroom, and you don't want to go in there because everything that's been deposited in there today is still in there. And it's just no way a human being should have to endure that. But they said, well, that ain't housing. And as far as our tents, one thing you haven't heard me use is a word that Mayor Lurie and Mayor Breed and everyone use: encampments. Encampments are in Yosemite, where you got the marshmallows and the little dog running around and the hot dogs and you singing all American songs. That's encampments. These are houses on those streets. These are dwellings. This is where people are living. These are people's bedrooms. So when you walk through my neighborhood and you say to yourself, and I know you say it, I've said it myself, why is he blocking this sidewalk? And you know what he's saying to you? Why are you walking through my bedroom? Because that's what you're doing. And it's not his bedroom. It's our bedroom. We gave it to him. Because we didn't provide services for him. We don't give him the same rights as a human being. I had a group of tourists from France or somewhere, I don't know where they were from. And we were walking through the Tenderloin. Nobody spoke to anybody. And a little dog came by. My whole group, hey puppy, hey puppy, hey puppy. I couldn't wait to get back to my shop. So you know what I saw y'all do out there? You passed by mamas. You passed by brothers. You passed by sons. You passed by ex-school teachers. And you didn't say one word. But when that dog came, every one of you leaned down and almost kissed him. What kind of people are you? Those are human beings. Those aren't fire plugs. Those aren't street lamps. Them human beings that we took a left turn on. They didn't take the left turn. We took a left turn on. We ignored them. And whatever your last name is, or your last name is, if your last name is Washington, there's Washingtons out there. Those are your relatives. In a real loving country, a real loving society, there are plenty of them in this world. I've been all around the world. No way in the world Washington would be on the street and you got a name Washington. You would go out there and get him. You might want to put him up in the attic and lock up your stereo, but you would bring him home. You would bring him to your house. And we don't do that. And everyone sitting in this room has someone homeless in their family. Call your grandma. If you don't believe me, call your grandma. Oh, yeah, we do have Aunt Susie up in Seattle. Yeah. Go get Aunt Susie. That's your relative. If everyone in this room would go get that relative, we would automatically have 16 fewer homeless tonight. But we don't do that. We expect the city to do it. We expect the federal government to do it. But we expect the state to do it. We expect everyone to do it but us. And we claim this is our city, St. Francis, the city of love. I ain't seen that love.
Are there any final questions? Maybe one final question.
Okay, well, you guys have been working on this for 10 years.
Yeah, long years.
Yeah. What's the biggest thing that has changed in that time period? And what's the biggest thing that hasn't changed in that time period?
Well, I would say, just from my point of view, not living in the Tenderloin as Del does, that one thing that's changed very positively is the success of Code Tenderloin, because it had just started when we met, and it's really taken off, and a staff and so forth. I mean, it used to be Del working out the back of his car, and on a couple tables at the piano fight, right? And now offices and grants and donated furniture, and I mean all kinds of. I think something like, I don't know how many people have been helped. I asked Donna Hilliard a while ago, and she said, "Oh, I don't know how many thousands." And I thought, okay, that's enough. And so to me, that's one of the most positive changes. The drugs have changed from crack when Del was there, and it was changing a little bit, I think, to heroin, and certainly now fentanyl. But I think Del can speak more to the changes within the Tenderloin itself.
Well, I mean, we haven't changed much. We got a new drug of choice, but that'll change. You know, the Tenderloin is about seasons. We have many seasons, and it'll be something new. Fentanyl white is real popular now because you can spend $2 and be high for 4 hours. It's nothing like the people coming from all over to get it. And you know, we're just dealing with it. We're paying more attention to a better management of homelessness, finally, with the help of the former mayor and the new mayor. It seems like it's going in the right direction, finally. We're going to get some interruptions. You know, I chair the Homeless Commission at City Hall, and we just got notified, in fact, yesterday, that we may understand some crazy burdens from the federal government as far as our HUD funding. Most of our affordable housings are funded by HUD. And we may have some interruptions because they're going to require us to do some things that I'm not sure our liberal government is willing to do. So we may see some drastic changes coming up in here in the next few days. Hasn't really been announced yet. We know it at City Hall, but they haven't put it out in the media. And we're just going on and just trying to do better, trying to get better interpretation of the needs for homelessness, the needs for, we tried the Conservative Act, and that didn't work. So we're trying to deal with our mental illness and just trying to endure, you know, and get people to understand, you all who don't live in the Tenderloin, to understand homeless, because it's out here too. I just saw several homeless people right on the corner here. So it's everywhere. And I had an incident last week that I'm still apologizing for and beat myself down for. People always ask me, well, you know, you're the homeless commissioner and everything you do in life is about homelessness. What will you do if the homeless move in your neighborhood? I said, I'll deal with it. I will take care of them. Oh yeah, you just full of shit. That wouldn't happen. So Thursday, a car full of homeless people pulled up in front of, I live in a very nice neighborhood, pulled up in front of my house. And before they could even turn the car out, my neighbors who know me well, they see me on TV and in the newspaper. Okay, now you got the homeless in front of your house. What are you gonna do, Mr. Homelessness? Said, I'm gonna take care of them. Like you knew I would do. Well, we're calling the sheriff. I said, no, you're not. They're not committing a crime. You're not calling the sheriff. I'll take care of this. And I went out and met them, and they told me what they was going through. I said, well, they were younger, so I couldn't invite them in the house because I'm still not cool with the younger generation. If they were our age, I would probably have done it, come in and take a shower or something, because I'm real about what I do and say. And I said, here, you can use my hose. I got an outdoor AC plug. You can charge your phones and everything. And let me know, I can get you some referrals. Okay, and that went on. So that was Wednesday night. So I woke up in the morning, there was garbage all over it. We don't have a candy wrapper in my neighborhood. You'll search all day for a candy wrapper. We don't play that where I live. And I went out and cleaned up. And the next night, same thing. I went out and cleaned up, and then I brought my garbage, one of my extra garbage cans, and put it there by the car. And they still put it outside the car. And I cleaned it up before my neighbors would see it, because I didn't want them coming to me. And then they started the loud music, and they got into a big fight Sunday night. So I called my friend who's a sheriff, and he was on duty. I told him the situation. He said, I'll come up there and take care of it. And I said, here's the referrals and all. So he came up, it took him about half an hour, he came up, and I heard him talk to him real nice, saying that, you know, you were welcome here, but you destroyed this neighborhood, and y'all gonna have to go. He said, if you come up here again, I'll tow your car, because your car's not even registered. I'm not gonna give you a ticket or nothing, but you need to, here's a place here, you can go and take your car, and it's a homeless outreach center. That was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I never went back to sleep for what I had did. I felt bad. Could I have done this a different way? Did I bow down to my neighbors? Am I changing from who I really am and telling the world I am? Why did I do that? Because I've done it a different way. But I keep trying to justify, well, I got strangers living in a nice neighborhood, and I don't want no one sitting in front of my house watching my schedule when I come in and out and see, well, he lives by himself. He's always gone. Because I'm gone from 6 in the morning to 6 at night. And I just was concerned about my safety. Now, am I talking like these not my backyard people? And I'm now being a Pacific hider? And that's what's got me, it still got me disturbed right now. But just to finish my part of this show is people, they asked me this morning. People ask me this question every day. I'm 80 years old, almost 80. I don't know how old I am, but I'm almost 80. And I'm a black man, as obviously. And people ask me every day, when are you going to sit down? Because I go to Tenderloin every day. When are you going to sit down? When are you going to stop? And the only thing I could tell them is I walk through the Tenderloin every day. See a black man laying on the sidewalk, laying in his own waste, 80 years old. When I look at him, you know who I'm looking at? I'm looking at Dale Seymour. Because they used to be me. I can't leave until I get him up off the ground. Because people didn't leave me. When I was laying in my own waste in front of the Coronado Hotel on Ellis Street, and people picked me up. I can't leave. I want to leave, but I can't leave. I would love to be right now sitting on my back porch. But I can't leave because he's still out there.
Well, Del Seymour, thank you so much. Alison Owings, round of applause. Carl, thank you. Green Apple Books on the Park. Great bookstore. Great place to buy the book and have Alison and maybe Del sign the book.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex.